on my computer.
And how's everyone been doing with your initial prototypes? I guess that's been progressing as well today.
Yeah, pretty much. Still in progress. We're going to focus more on our one a little bit in the weekend. We just had to do a little bit more pivoting with that idea, but yeah.
Okay, and anyone else wants to share some experiences? Someone is a bit shy today. Okay, let me take you through this because this can also help you to come to terms with your value proposition, but equally keep shaping your prototype ready for your testing as well. So we're going to look at the business model canvas. And again, just to give you a little bit of sense of where this all fits in the bigger picture. So similar to the value proposition is that in-between stage after you have done your ideation, come up with a few ideas of how you think you can solve the problem that you're tackling. And then it's really about trying to shape the idea into something much more solid. And what it actually is basically a one-page business plan. And that will help you describe and visualize for yourselves as a team, but equally for others who want to understand what is it that your idea is about. And if you think about it, and we'll come to see the canvas, some of you, I believe, may have seen this as well before, but think about it as it's the building blocks of your idea, of what's called to commercialize it. And what that means is that if you come up with an idea, then there has to be a very clearly identified customer target who is willing to engage, to use and pay money for the services that you're trying to offer. So we'll have a look at that. So why is it important? Is because it does help you plan what are those key elements that you need to consider, and you have it all in one place at a glance. It avoids you having to develop multiple pages, loads of information where you can just simply focus on the very key fundamentals or foundations of your idea. We always encourage you to start small, particularly with the purposes of this accelerator. You want to be thinking particularly like once you present your idea on demo day. So of course you'll be going through your prototype, but if an idea was to be selected to be taken further, then what are the kind of things that you will need to take it beyond the prototype to make it into a working prototype, what's called a minimal viable product, which perhaps has a few working functionalities, again, just the basic functionalities to start getting even better feedback and testing usability, whether people actually desire it, want it, are willing to pay, and so on. So those are kind of the working on it through stages. Of course, it doesn't help that when you are presenting your idea to the judges, that you have thought about what does this look like in the future? Does it have the opportunity to make it scalable, which means to make it bigger, to expand perhaps to more customers or to more regions, etc. So it's always worth thinking about what are the future goals for your idea. It also helps others understand your idea in a very clear and concise manner. And finally, it also helps you put your idea to the test. And by taking the learnings that you will observe when you go out there with your prototype in particular, you can always come back to improve your business canvas according to the knowledge that you have gained. And it's important to think about the business model canvas before you do your testing of your prototype as well, is because there are different elements that you might want to test. Sometimes it could be that you need to test the tech itself in terms of the functionalities of your prototype, but sometimes it could be that you need to test how much people are willing to pay and what is the best way to reach them. So again, it's thinking about not only in terms of the development of the tech and the tools, but what is going around it as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great. And again, just a recap in terms of where this becomes useful. So of course, it's about trying to illustrate how you can potentially get this idea off the ground and what are the different tools that you will need to make that happen. You will be using it as parts of your pitch deck when it comes to demo day. And of course, in the future, if you are presenting it to any other potential investors or judges, that can look at your idea and take it further from that as well. So this is what the business model canvas looks like. So you can see it's got quite a number of boxes. I will be talking you through a little bit through each one of those. So we'll take that one by one. And so it's interesting to see this. If we were to split this in half, to the right-hand side, we have everything that's related to the customer. And to the left-hand side, we have everything that's related to actually running the business. So what I would suggest normally is always starting from the customer segments. Because first of all, as we discussed yesterday, that you always want to be very clear on who is your customer target. Who is it that you are, whose problems are you trying to solve, or whose lives are you trying to make better? So that has to be very clear. So some of you, I know that you have very clear demographics, such as, for example, young people from this age to this age, or it could be teachers specifically in this particular level of education, etc. So that's really good, so to keep that focus. And we bring that in because the business model canvas is always also helping you in a way summarize all the information that has been coming from different sources, from different areas, all into one place. So the next element that I encourage you to look at, which is the value proposition. So we did some work already yesterday. I know that you're still working on it. So that's, again, make sure once you have finalized it, that you do include it in your business model canvas. And that will also keep on reminding you and keeping you focused on what are the key elements that you will need for all the different boxes on the business model canvas to get you thinking about materializing your idea. Then the other element is looking at channels. And what that means is thinking about how would you reach your customers? So if you're targeting young people, perhaps your research has shown that young people spend a lot of time on Instagram, for example, or Facebook, and maybe you want to run some ads to be able to advertise what your idea is about. So if you were to run some sort of marketing activities. And again, you might not necessarily do this straight away, but it's always worth thinking and being able to illustrate that and demonstrate that you have thought about that to the judges. The other element is also customer relationships, which I'll encourage you to look at next, because pretty much they are quite closely related to the channels. And what this is about is also thinking about the overall experience. When customers you've attracted their attention through, let's say, a Facebook ad. Now, what do they do? Where do they have to go? What kind of things do they need to access? Is it perhaps that the first encounter is via a chatbot before they can access a human behind the screen if that's needed, depending on, of course, what your idea is? And equally, how do you keep that engagement throughout their time that they are with you as a customer? Because especially if you have, for example, let's take the example of the educational tool, you might be thinking about, how can you create a leaderboard? Could you create some sort of gamification to make it more entertaining and ensure people are increasing the time on with your product or service, and that they are coming back for more for it as well. So those are interlinked. And then what we're going to do now, we're going to move to the other side of the charts. And I will suggest to look at key resources. So in addition to all those elements from the customer side of things, is also thinking out what are the critical things that we need to make the model work. So in this case, it could be that perhaps if you think about in the future, trying to develop a more functional prototype, it could be that you need a particular skill set or particular experts. Or it could be that you may need a specific tool, whether it's an app, whether it's a website, mock-up, whatever that may be. So it's thinking about what are those resources, those different tools that you will need. Then hand in hand goes key activities as well. And that's thinking about the critical tasks and the processes that you need to make your idea work. So say, for example, if you were selling a particular product, if it was a physical product, then you want to think about, well, you want to perhaps offer online services, so online delivery. And at the same time, from a key activities point of view, thinking about, so how would you track those orders? How would you know how many customers have ordered what? And when do they need to be sent out for delivery, as an example? Again, for those who are developing content, for example, so that could be another area where you need to, is going to be very crucial as part of your service, as part of your app. So again, any of those elements that you think are going to be necessary. The other point is key partners. And what this means is that there will be times where there's certain things that you can deliver yourselves, but if you were to launch this in the future, there could be other ways of doing it, and particularly where it comes through suppliers. Say, for example, if you are tackling mental well-being and you want to offer a particular service in terms of counseling, perhaps you don't need to be employing directly counselors yourself. If you put that as an idea, it could be that actually you develop a partnership with an existing charity like the Samaritans, etc. So it's thinking about who else could support you, whether it's from a supplier or a partnership perspective. And also think about the judges that you have in the room as well. It could be that they have a role to play in getting your idea and making it happen. So that's when we talk about networks and partners. And then the other element is thinking about cost structure. And what this means is thinking about what are the potential costs that you will be needing to invest in to be able to develop your idea. And often from a total point of view, we look at, for example, wages of employees. Of course, this is not going to happen at this stage, but we look at, for example, of course, if you want to get your product or service in the hands of your target consumer, it could be that at least you need some sort of marketing investments. So it's always worth thinking about what kind of costs would be involved, because if we were to forget any of that, then we could end up in a difficult situation, particularly when it comes to understanding how we're going to make money, but equally recover the investment that we've made as well once we commercialize this. And then the final element is the revenue streams. And what this means is thinking about how can we generate income from our idea. And there might be some times where perhaps something is offered in different stages, and we'll talk about this in a moment as well. So it's really just thinking about if there's a really great solution, customers are really wanting it, they feel that this is their solution for them, what's going to solve their pain points and their needs, then I'll be willing to pay X, Y, Z. So what we will encourage you to do as well is that when you are looking at each of those elements, think about different possibilities, because there may always be more than one answer to each of those options, and decide as a team what will make more sense in terms of the kind of product or service that you're looking to develop and who is your targeted audience as well. Sometimes as well, when it comes to the customer segments, so just to go back on that point as we recapped yesterday, is that sometimes you might have two customer segments. So if we go back to the example of Airbnb, where you have the guest who's staying in someone's home, but you have the host who's actually offering their home as well. So think about how you will attract each one of those if you have more than two players in your idea. Okay, any questions before we move on? No? And now I just want to give you a couple of ideas of how you can generate some revenue streams from your ideas. So some of these you may be familiarized because as a customer yourselves, you may have seen this happening or you may have gone through this process. So direct price, which of course is simply paying a particular price for a product or service as a one-off, and you may or may not come back to get more of that particular product as well, depending on what that is. In-app purchases could also happen when, for example, you have access to an app which is free of charge, but perhaps to enable to unlock additional content, there's a requirement for a payment, or if you want to reach to a certain level in a particular task, where again, a payment is required. So that's one way of looking at it. A subscription base, which is quite common. So if you look at services like YouTube, Spotify, where you pay a monthly subscription, particularly if you don't want to have ads as part of the free offer. Commission base, again, this is an example such as Airbnb, where they charge a commission to both the guest as well as the host for each transaction that is made on their platform. Freemium, I mentioned this a little bit. So there are lots of examples out there where you have lots of access to free content, sometimes with ads, which will then move into a combination of the in-app purchases if you want to access further content by paying a price for it. Or there's times where you have it with ads, and in order to get rid of them, it allows you to upgrade the service. Then another set of ways of monetizing your idea is also pay per user, for example, especially if you have things like software usage, licenses, where again, this is particularly useful if you are trying to expand geographically and where being in all locations physically is not possible, where you're able to license your product and your service and ensuring that there is a consistent way of delivering that product according to your brand vision. The other element is acquiring users. So this is an example that started off really in the early stages of, if you think about the likes of WhatsApp or Instagram, where they offered the services for free, no ads at the beginning. You were able to use it completely free as a user. However, what was really clever about them, although this requires time, is that they acquire quite a high number of users. And that made them really attractive to other future investors like Facebook and so on, who took over afterwards, because they were able to have a very solid customer base who was very loyal and who was very engaged with each of the apps as well. And that will, of course, open up to more opportunities to different models that they are currently using at the moment as well. Affiliate marketing, which is a way of being able to offer ad space on your website, for example. So you're gaining income through different third parties or suppliers by allowing people to either recommend a product or click on a banner that takes them to a product page and gaining a percentage out of that. Normally, I would say that is not necessarily, I wouldn't encourage it as a main point of making money, but it's something worth considering as well. And the last example there is incentivized traffic. And what this means is that sometimes you will have access. So if we think about YouTube, if you're using it on the free version, now you have incentivized traffic in the form of ads that present themselves in the middle of listening to music. And that's sometimes you may not be able to skip them because it's encouraging to look at the ad before you're able to continue enjoying the service. Also, perhaps some of you may be familiarized with the app for languages, Duolingo, for example, which equally is started off as a free service. And now there's lots of incentivized traffic through ads as well, that in order for you to progress to the next level, they suggest, if you look at this ad, you'll be able to get extra points here and there. Okay, any questions at all on these kind of models?
No, that was great.
Good. And I think that's all I had for you today. So what I've done here as well is I won't take you through this, but I will send it as a deck to Elena to share on the channel. So you can have a look with your teams as well. It's just giving you a couple of examples of what a business model looks like across all those different areas that we discussed from the canvas. So one that is a social enterprise here, Zipline, offering drone delivery services in the healthcare sector. And another one which is related to home improvements and being able to save on your energy bills by insulating properly your home. So those are there as an example, so have a look at those. And then finally, the other element that I'll also encourage you to go back to revisit, so something that we spoke about yesterday, because these are all interconnected. So as you are designing your idea, thinking about what your prototype is going to look like, how you're going to monetize it, etc., go back to also look at your competitor benchmark. Remember that we said about looking at what key features they're offering, but equally what are they doing well, what could they be doing better, and how are they making money if that's something that you can see as well from their websites or any material that's available online for them. Because that will also help you shape your idea and think, okay, this could be a good way to attract our customers, and it seems to be perhaps working with our competitors as well. Okay, any final questions?
You see the template that you had for the business canvas model, but by any chance are you sharing that with them?
Yes, I'll send this over to Elena to share on the channel.
Yeah, because I just thought it might be great for my team to actually use that template. Maybe we can just write on it and stuff like that.
Yes, absolutely. So if you just paste it onto your Jamboard, and you can add each with your post-its as well. So certainly I can send that over.
Thank you so much. I'll definitely use the examples to help as well to implement.
Sure. Anything else? Or any other questions that you might be struggling as well before getting to this point?
I was just wondering with the value proposition statement, like, so after you do the value proposition statement, is that when you would do the business model canvas then, essentially? Is that how you would use that sort of, because there's a section for value propositions in the business model canvas, so would that also still have to be short on the business model canvas?
Yeah, so it'll be exactly the same thing. So normally I encourage to write the value proposition first, because that is almost like your guiding principle. And if you recall what we were talking about yesterday, is also another way to keep you focused on what exactly is the customer problem. Because from that all of these other elements will come together. So if you think about it as each one of these are a piece of a puzzle, and everything is stemming from your customer segment and your value proposition.
Thank you so much.
Mommy.
That's okay. Any other questions? If not, then we can end it there and I can let you go. I don't know if Elena wants to jump back on the call.
I think she has to take her son, I think, to a birthday party is what she mentioned.
Yeah.
So we would just have to ask me or Mariam just to end the call whenever it's done. So if anyone
That's
else
fine.
yeah.
Perfect. I'll send over the slides and they should be on the channel soon later this afternoon as well. Thank you everyone, and good luck continuing your hard work, and do get some rest over the weekend as well. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.